This is the 2023 Toyota Bz4X. It is an all-electric vehicle with up to 242 miles of range and all the modern amenities you would expect. We're going to check out all the features and then take it for a drive. Right now on Driving Sports TV. Though electric vehicles have been around for over a century, it was really Toyota that put electrification on the map with their very successful Prius hybrid. Partially because of that early success, it was really frustrating to see Toyota dragging their feet towards battery electrics. Instead, Toyota produced the Miura, a commercially available hydrogen car. Now, don't get me wrong, hydrogen has the potential to be great. However, and it's a big however, it currently and in the foreseeable future takes more power to create hydrogen than that hydrogen can store. It is a net negative. And outside of California, the refueling infrastructure is non-existent. With the eco-conscious consumer market moving away from hybrids and towards all-electric vehicles, it was time for Toyota to finally throw their hat into the game. And they're doing it with this, a vehicle that they co-developed with Subaru. It's called the Bz4X. Yes, that's the actual name. The Bz4X is classified as a crossover thanks to the shape, as well as the 8.1 inches of ground clearance. The model we're testing today is the front-wheel drive Limited. Prices you see it here with a couple options. $49,258 US, including destination. The look is modern with a clear relationship to other all-new Toyota and Lexus models. You might have expected a front trunk like other electrics, but no, Toyota crammed the electric motor and all of the support equipment up here. Now you might be asking why? Well, it has to go somewhere. If they pack it all together in the front, it doesn't take up any room in the cabin or the trunk. Power comes from a 71.4 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack connected to a single 201 horsepower electric motor. Estimated range at this trim level is 242 miles on a full charge. The included charging port is a standard CCS that supports DC fast charge up to 150 kilowatts. The Bz4X does include a heat pump to mitigate effects of temperature on the battery. However, earlier today I did charge this and it is 36 degrees out. I was on a 150 kilowatt charger, yet this vehicle could only take a charge at 30 kilowatts. That was the maximum. So yeah, if you want to do a winter road trip, may not be the best choice. The Limited comes standard with these massive 20-inch wheels. They are wrapped in Bridgestone Turanza all seasons in a 235/50 R20 fitment. A power liftgate is standard at this trim level. Don't even need to use my hands. Behind the second row, you're looking at 27.7 cubic feet of cargo capacity. Under the floor is a charging cable. This is a level 1 included charger. Okay, second row. I have room for my legs. I am 6'1", legs torso proportionate. This is where I'd be sitting if I were driving, and I got tons of room in my knees. The floor does feel very high, and that's for two reasons. First off, we have an 8.1 inches of ground clearance, so you have to step a little bit higher into the vehicle to begin with, but also because that is the battery pack down there, which gives it a low center of gravity, but does bring my feet up, and that's not, unique to the Bz4X. Other electrics have that same issue. However, I don't hit my head, which is nice. Down here, I get two USB-C power sockets, vents. Look, vents. And I even get a fold-down armrest with a spot for my device. Yeah, this is pretty nice. I especially like that we have the panorama sunroof up here. Really lets in a lot of light in what is otherwise a very dark interior. Moving up front. Okay, let's power it on. Takes a moment to power cycle. And now we're good to go. First thing I'm going to do is adjust my seating position. The steering wheel can block this main display. The cluster is very high and back. It kind of replaces the need of having a heads-up display. But the problem here is at the top of the wheel, for people of certain heights, it can get in the way. So what I have to do is push it down all the way, lock it in, and then make sure that my seat is also adjusted accordingly. There we go. Yeah, let's push it back just a wee bit. There we go. Okay, now I'm looking over the steering wheel at the gauge cluster, which is a little weird. It does take a little while to get used to, but it's not so bad. I just don't love it. I really wish that it would tilt with the wheel. Toyota is definitely going all in on this design because the new Prius also has a very similar layout, for better or for worse. Now the wheel itself is wrapped in synthetic and it has lots of buttons on it. On the right we have the adaptive cruise control stuff. On the left we have the ability to switch through the different menus up here. And there are lots of little menus to give me all the information that I want about the system. In particular, up here is where you can adjust the adaptive cruise system. You can turn on lane detect because this is based on Toyota's Safety Sense 3.0, which is fully loaded with all the latest features. This one has lane detect, blind spot monitoring, pre-collision, parking assist, rear cross traffic alerts, pedestrian detection, safe exit assist, which means if I try to open my door and a car's coming, it will notify me. And of course, it'll also read street signs. So you can see if you're exceeding the speed limit, which we never do, right? Right. The seat is rather comfortable. It's padded in all the nice spots. It feels very sporty too. I actually rather like this seat, and it is both heated and cooled at this limited trim level. Further, I also get a heat option on the steering wheel with 2 stages of heat. That's kind of nice in cold days to warm your hands up. Now, this whole center cluster thing, it's got a lot going on here. Main transmission control is a push and turn affair, not too bad. Doesn't take up a lot of space. I do like that it's centrally located. It just kind of feels natural to use, more so than the Prius little shifter toggle. I actually prefer this one. Next to it on the left we have a button for what is essentially one pedal driving, although this vehicle doesn't support true one pedal. And then on the right we have all the different drive modes, eco, snow, and then a couple other buttons including view, so you can change your camera view, and then traction control as well. Below that we have this bin which stores a cell phone if your phone isn't too big. But one thing I am noticing, I recently got an iPhone 14 Pro, and this has a very large camera module on the back, which means that when I lay it down on the wireless charger, it's not in full contact with the charger. So it initially says it's charging, then it says it's not, then it is, then it's not, then it is, then it's not. It's basically not finding a good charging condition here. So wireless charging doesn't seem to work here, at least not reliably. There is a workaround. There's a USB-A socket in here, and then down below here we have both a USB-C and a 12-volt socket. Behind that we have a couple of cup holders, which are just your standard cup holders, and then we also get a bin right here. Now, looking at this, clearly you would say, hey, that looks like piano black. Actually, it's worse because it's clear through here. So this is just going to show scratches like you can't believe. And I imagine most people are going to keep this closed all the time and not put their cell phone in here, or they're going to leave it open all the time and it's just going to accumulate junk and that door's in the way. So I like the idea conceptually of this layout, but combined with the phone that I'm using and the way I'm going to use it, I just kind of wish that it was more of a bin and less of a door. Although I'm sure this looks great in photos. Up here we have the latest infotainment system from Toyota. This is the same system that has shown up in Lexus vehicles of late. It is a homegrown system, actually, unlike many other car makers. They didn't just buy this one. This one is actually something they built. And the home page is navigation, and it is very much oriented around voice command. Find the nearest coffee shop.
The closest coffee shop is close to Home Espresso at 9023 Key Peninsula Highway Northwest.
It's a very good system, and it uses natural speech to set your commands. I can do even more than just navigation too. Set my temperature to 70 degrees.
Setting the driver's seat temperature to 70 degrees.
You can also ask it questions. Tell me a joke. I guess it's not a question.
I can't believe I got fired from the calendar factory. All I did was take a day off.
Hey-o! Hadn't heard that one? That is an awful joke. So the system is very good. I like this size of display as well. Just the widescreen, the color, the ability to use touch. It's a really nice system, and it supports multiple devices. So if you have a home phone and a work phone that you have to carry with you, they can both be integrated here for hands-free. And of course, yeah, wireless. It does support wireless CarPlay. Sometimes if I'm outside the vehicle and then I get back into the vehicle while it's on, it does lose connection, but that's very easy. I just have to go to Manage Devices, Connect, and it'll reconnect to the CarPlay. I find this system actually is pretty reliable, surprisingly reliable in terms of connection for a 1.0 as I've been using it lately. And this is a first version. Now, as they add features, theoretically, they can update this with over-the-air updates, although there hasn't been anything significant I'm aware of since it was introduced, so don't expect all new features to show up like, I don't know, level 5 autopilot. That's just not going to happen. Moving on down, we have radio, which supports FM, AM, as well as satellite Sirius XM. One thing that's a little weird here is there is no tuning dial. I have to use a button up here that only appears when I'm actually looking at a specific channel. And then there's also no volume knob. I have to use buttons, but at least they do give me hard buttons for that, which I like. Beneath that is aircon, and it is all push buttons of some sort. Either you have the little, surface mount buttons up here, or you have toggles right there. Flick it into reverse, and we get guidelines. We also get a surround view at this trim level. And that surround view will actually draw in the surface under the vehicle as we drive, which helps if you're actually doing like trails or you're trying to really position the vehicle in the right spot, like in a car wash. So that's actually really useful. In terms of audio, the standard stereo is fine. You can get a JBL upgrade. And if you do, it adds a subwoofer in the back, which actually takes away a little bit of the cargo space, but not a lot. This interior overall, actually, I kind of like the fabric up here. I like the overall design. Everything falls to hand nicely. It's very well thought out. Well, enough with the details. Time to take it for a drive. Woo! Man, I really like electric cars, and the main reason is all that torque. This vehicle puts out, I think it's about 194 pound-feet of torque. And of course it is front-wheel drive. I mean, we would have killed for that level of performance only 20 years ago. I mean, back in 1998, I bought what was that? It was an Acura Integra GSR. It had 180 horsepower. And I was stoked. I think I also paid close to 30 grand for that, in 1998 dollars. But this, it's an unexpected amount of performance if you've never driven an electric before. And I do really, really like the feeling here. Some electric cars, when they're only a single motor, opt to go with the rear-wheel drive layout. And that is probably more because they're upper-end trims and they're really designed to go more after that luxury car market. And in an electric car, you kind of expect them to be rear-wheel drive when they are not all-wheel drive. This one, it's front-wheel drive, very much like the Chevy Bolt EUV. Now, most people's use case scenario for an electric car is to have a level 2 charger at home. You come home, you plug it in, overnight it gets a complete charge, you then drive it all day if you need to, come back, plug it in, start all over again. The chargers in the middle of nowhere scenario are really only for road trips, and doing an electric car on a road trip is still not the optimal condition. Yes, you can do it. No, it's not something a lot of people are comfortable with, nor is the infrastructure really set up to do that for a lot of people. The number of chargers are limited. The charging times are all over the place, depending on which vehicle you have. And so it's just not a comfortable experience for a lot of people. However, around town, doing chores, the daily run, either you're commuting, you're moving kids between school and shopping, an electric car, perfect. And I really think that this BZ4X is a nice fit in this category. The biggest competition, because this is front-wheel drive, is probably the Chevy Bolt EUV, which we have tested fairly recently. And that vehicle is really good for the money. It's about 10 grand cheaper if you compare equal trims. But with this vehicle having the ability to charge faster, it really puts it up a notch. And then above and beyond that, you have this whole infotainment system that is shared with Lexus and is actually really nice. It's a more modern system than the one found in the Chevy. On the other hand, the Chevy Bolt does have Super Cruise available, which is a hands-free level 2 system. Basically on the freeway, you don't need to keep your hands on the wheel, which is kind of nice. But this one's not lacking in that department really either. You do have to keep your hands on the wheel all the time, but it does have lane tracing. It has adaptive cruise. In actual practice, it's a very similar system because they're both level 2, which means that the driver has to be in charge at all times. Now, do you want to go hands-free? Well, then Chevy would be the choice. If you don't care about hands-free, well, I think I would probably lean towards the BZ4X. And I wouldn't get the front-wheel drive, I would get the all-wheel drive because it just kind of makes it more of a jack of all trades. With an all-wheel drive, if it snows or even if it's a little slimy out because of a heavy rain or whatever, the all-wheel drive just is a more capable and confident vehicle. And I've driven both of these at this point. My initial review on the BZ4X was with the all-wheel drive trim. And then I also drove the Subaru Solterra, which is the identical vehicle as this, albeit only available with all-wheel drive. And yeah, between the two, I would absolutely take the all-wheel drive. When I first drove this, I wasn't fond of the gauge cluster way up here in the way of the steering wheel. It's still not my favorite thing, but I am living with it, and I think it's actually okay. This would not make it a no-buy for me. I just find it a little weird. Like, who did they test this with? I mean, did nobody say, I don't like this? Because pretty much every journalist I've met who's driven this doesn't like this. And yeah, after a while you get kind of used to it. You have the small steering wheel all the way down in your lap and you make it work for you. But I mean, really, how does stuff like this get out of R&D and into actual production vehicles with nobody raising a hand going, this isn't better? Because this is not better. It does move the view of my gauge cluster more in line with the road, but that's what heads-up systems were doing. And you could get heads-up systems in vehicles at a price the same as this vehicle. So I don't really know what the gain is here. We need to try a 0 to 60. We're on a level surface, complete stop. There's no drive modes, just punch it. 3, 2, 1, hit it. Pretty quick. Ooh, it's trying not to scamper the wheels too much, and 60. That's pretty quick, and you could definitely tell that traction control was kicking in because when you stomp that throttle, it wants to put a lot of horsepower right to the front wheels, but you just don't have enough grip with front-wheel drive. So as I'm cruising along here, let's take a look at the decibels that my watch is measuring. It's looking at it's about 65 decibels, which is a little bit on the loud side. In the cabin here, I am getting a lot of wind noise. Funny thing about electric cars is that once you remove the sound of an internal combustion engine, which is on all the time, the other noises on the outside of the vehicle become more prominent. So like right now, I'm hearing wind move around the vehicle. I'm hearing more of the tires. And these are 20-inch wheels, so you don't have a lot of air between, the wheel and the asphalt. Yeah, overall, very comfortable, nice to drive. The power is very good. You get lots of passing power. acceleration from a stop. It's all right here. This really is the complete package in terms of electric vehicles. When it comes to electric vehicles, range is always on the table. It's always something that people are going to discuss. And it's because limitations of current battery tech. So there are some vehicles that'll get you over 300 miles of range. Some will even do up to 400 miles of range. But do you know how they do that? They just make enormous battery packs. So what you're doing is you're ending up with a vehicle, like in the case of the Hummer, that weighs almost 10,000 pounds. Now, when you actually do get a vehicle to weigh that much, you have some other issues. And that means you have much faster brake wear, much faster tire wear. It makes the vehicle more difficult to maneuver. There's just a lot of stuff you have to work against. So I kind of like the idea that with the current level of battery tech, that Toyota targeted just around 250 miles of range with this front-wheel drive trim. I think that's a really nice sweet spot to be in. It doesn't mean that this is a cross-country cruiser, because at 250 miles of range, you're going to be stopping quite a lot if you do plan to make interstate trips. Especially if you're in the cold, you're going to be sitting at those cafes for a long time while you're waiting for the vehicle to charge. Funny thing is that this limited front-wheel drive is not the most efficient version of the BZ4X you can get. If you actually get the entry-level trim, which is the XLE, you get something like an extra 10 miles of range. It actually is over 250 miles of range by like 1 or 2. So the 20-inch wheels might look good, but they're actually not beneficial in terms of economy. There are a few things I can't really test on this vehicle because it's daylight, but I want to point out specifically it does have the automatic high beams, which is kind of a nice thing when you live in the country. In terms of visibility, I kind of like the layout of this vehicle because we have the side mirrors pushed back enough that I can look through the A-pillar here. There's a little cutout back by the C-pillar there, so I get more visibility in the back. Overall, it's a very easy vehicle to drive. I can see kind of why Subaru and Toyota both said, yeah, let's slap our name on it.
Sorry,
because
I'm having trouble understanding.
Can't say the name of the vehicle without it calling me out. As I was saying, this manufacturer and Subaru, I can see why they, basically agreed and said, hey, let's just slap our names on our respective models because it's a good platform. This is a good vehicle overall. And it's competitive with what everybody else is offering. The biggest issue with this vehicle and with the Subaru, frankly, the limited numbers. They're not making many of them. Now that we're on the freeway, we can test out the adaptive cruise control with lane centering. All I have to do is turn it on here. I set my speed, I set my distance, and boom, I am traveling behind the vehicle and I don't even need to deal with brake or gas. In fact, it'll also auto steer and keep me centered in the lane if I turn that feature on. Let's turn it on. Okay, I got a little green steering wheel up there, boom. I am tracking right behind the vehicle in front of me and it's keeping me in the center of the lane. Now this is a hands-on system. I'm only taking my hands off to show you how it's keeping me centered in the lane. I'm not doing any steering myself. Although it will tell you to put your hands back on the wheel because, like I said, this is not a hands-free system. And that's one area where the Bolt is ahead of the Toyota because you can get the hands-free cruise control system, which works on, select highways. They basically geofence highways off where they know it's going to be safe to use. This one, you do have to keep your hands on the wheel at all time. Does that matter to most drivers? Probably not, but it is cool tech. If you're in the market for a front-wheel drive electric car and the Chevy Bolt just really isn't doing it for you, you should check out this BZ4X. It has, I think, everything that you really want in an electric car using the current state of technology. Now, we are just a few years away from solid-state batteries potentially extending range without adding weight, and that will be a very nice thing. But we're not there yet, so if you're looking for something now or next year, this vehicle is a good option. For Driving Sports TV, I'm Ryan Douthit. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, share our videos. We make them for you, and I hope you enjoy them.